Hey everybody, welcome back. We're doing another Loki episode. This time it's from episode 4. We got our guys here, Mike and Eddie. So we'll jump into the episode. If you're new to the channel, check out the Discord link in the description below. Hammer down on that like button to help the YouTube algorithm. We're doing a giveaway once we get to 10,000 subscribers. So if you want to go ahead and roll on that, just comment below, right? All right, so let's go chat with Mike and Eddie about Loki episode 4 and what we think is coming. Spoiler warning, you've been told.
Bring me Wolverthor!
So what's up, dudes? You guys want to talk some Loki stuff? Well, how's life? Everything's good?
With it.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, so we're talking episode 4. Obviously, we'll talk about some stuff as we think might be happening, but this episode starts with Sylvie as a child in Asgard. She's picked up by then the agent Ravonna and taken to the TVA. She goes through the typical process that we know in the TVA that we've seen before. And then eventually, obviously, spoiler, that she gets the temp pad from Ravonna and escapes. There was a lot in that little scene there. So what are your guys' initial impressions from that first scene? Eddie, why don't you go ahead and hit it?
Oh, man. Okay, cool. First of all, I love this episode. This episode was great. There was so much in it, and it was emotional as hell. I just loved it. So it opens with a shot of Asgard, which we've always seen from the front, but this one was from the back. So it was cool to see it from like a different point of view, from a character that we have never met before. And so it opens up, she's in the tower and she's playing with toys. And she gets picked up by the TVA. Renslayer, who's an agent at the time. Why? Was she doing something? Like it seemed like they just picked her up and then that was it. She just got pulled from the face of the timeline and she was gone. We don't know why she was taken. It didn't seem like there was a Nexus event happening. It seemed like she was comfortable, and even she was surprised when they showed up. So I was Sylvia. I mean, she was surprised when the TVA showed up. And then A23, who was Renslayer before she became the judge, I think I read somewhere. Here's A23 might be a reference to Avengers 23, where she was first introduced. Kang professes his love for her. She obviously turns him down, and then he attempts to destroy her own planet or her home, just her home in general. So they bring her to the TVA, and she goes through a similar process that Loki goes, but from a different point of view. Like, you're looking at an adult versus a child, and obviously a child has more fear because you're just like, I don't know what's going on. I'm small. I can't defend myself. The part that I found interesting, thinking about it now, was when she goes through the machine to see if she's a robot, right? Spoiler towards the end, when we find out what the timekeepers are. It's funny that they have that there, because first we didn't know why they did that, but now it kind of makes sense that they don't want another robot to come into the TVA to expose what seemed to expose that flaw in their process, I guess. So I thought that was kind of cool. I want to talk about that. I want to hear Mike's thoughts on that. And it seems like I'm sure we discussed this in the chat. If not, we're doing it now. The TVA almost feels like that scene in The Winter Soldier where Fury's talking about how they're making the helicarriers that are like killing people like before they can make moves, like future and past, present, and future problems just to negate all threats before they happen. It seems like the TVA is like that on a much wider scale. Like, I mean, we're talking like they can jump through time and stuff like that. So I just feel like their purpose is deeper than what we're seeing, and I feel I just want to know what's going on there. So then she escapes relatively easy, by the way. It seemed like she got the temp pad and was out, and like no one went for her, and even Renslayer looked at her as she just went to the portal and just disappeared. I just thought that was amazing. I was okay, that was quick. And then we start the episode. Mike, thoughts?
There was a lot. That first stretch was, like you said, it was all very quick. Like, we don't know what she did. Like, we know what her Nexus event was. Like, it seemed like her Nexus event was being in Asgard playing with the Valkyrie toys.
Right.
Like, that's why I was so I watched it a couple times now, and it still confuses me, like, how that was like was going to screw up the world. In some capacity. I'm with you on the robot thing. I like that. that little catch, and it also very much makes sense. But I would say too, when we talk about what happens later, it kind of everything's kind of falling into place. But I still really want to know what her Nexus event was and why what she messed up in the timeline, because she was a little girl playing with toys.
Right.
Literally doing nothing.
Right.
Literally doing nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. My and I think I mentioned this when we talked previously. Is my one thought process is she wasn't supposed to be in Asgard. I mean, if you look at her like origin story in the comics, like Loki does create her. Like she is from like Oklahoma or something like that. So maybe Loki like did take her like way back when and put her in Asgard, and she's not supposed to be there. I don't know, but it was all very funky, and like you said, it was very like sad to see like a little kid basically put in prison.
Yeah, dude.
That was weird. But yeah, far too easy for Renslayer to be like an officer. She got her foot stepped on, got her temp pad taken out, and then disappeared. Also, she knew how to use that temp pad rather quickly.
Yes. Very bright child. Very bright child.
Yeah.
Which makes me think like there was a point of also that maybe that wasn't her first time escaping.
Maybe.
Huh. Now I feel like you're starting to look at stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, now I'm just over it.
Yeah,
anyway,
I feel
cool.
that's, yeah.
Sorry, Thor.
It's all good.
But a lot to unpack there. You get a little bit of basically overview of why Sylvie is who she is, and it leads into kind of plot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So right after that, we've got flash forward from the back when Sylvie was a kid, but it's got Loki and Sylvie are basically about to die on Lamentus. Everything is kind of falling apart. You see the other planet coming to crash into it, and then at the TVA, you see that there's this Nexus event like no other, kind of coming off the timeline. And it was happening, oddly enough, right as Sylvie and Loki were about to hold hands. It's like, all right, like something's up with that. And we also see Mobius talking to Ravonna about how, and she's really adamant about saying to Mobius, you have to capture them. Like you need to get them. So there's clearly something up. And then the TVA comes to basically get him out of there. So, Mike, what from this little mini scene, and there wasn't a lot there. What were your takeaways from some of the, especially the Ravonna stuff? At least I'm interested in.
Yeah, she's. I mean, we've always thought she's sketchy. Obviously, she does have an origin of being sketchy. It also interests me, like, I think Mobius was also asking about the other officer too, I think around that same time as well. And she was just like, don't worry about that. Find these people. The only thing that was really kind of crazy about that scene is when Mobius noticed that Nexus event happening. One, Nexus events aren't supposed to be happening on Armageddon planets.
Right.
Two, the only thing that really did happen was they like touched each other. Like they were just like she started holding his arm or he held her arm, and there was like, it wasn't like, like there was like kind of that moment where you're like, are they gonna kiss sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
But it really confused me on, I don't think it necessarily is like a love thing that was causing that Nexus event. I'm not sure what, but yeah, it was, I don't know. What about you, Thor? Or Eddie, sorry.
Yeah, go to Eddie. Let's see. Here's what Eddie says.
No, it was interesting because let's take a quick step back. I'm pretty sure before that moment we get introduced to the timekeepers real quick. Like
yeah,
we
just
see
like
their
a flash
eyes
scene at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, she goes into the office. Yeah.
Right, real quick. So they're sitting in the chairs. Did you see the red emblem in the back behind them?
Yeah.
Remember in WandaVision the ruins around the city and and then in the basement? You remember that? Did it seem like that to you? Is that why no one can use their powers in the TVA, or am I just reading too much into that?
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I think you might be looking too much into it, but
Right.
I don't hate the idea. And maybe it could be some sort of like magic area that's been ruined, and that only that person can use their magic there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that place is like a place of no magic,
Right.
or like no powers. So, maybe there's something crazy. But it also, we've talked about, we think it's in the quantum realm, which who knows what happens in there.
Yeah.
No idea what's on there.
But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no worries. So that moment where they're on Lamentus One, and they're just talking about Loki's and how they're destined. What was the quote? He was like, "We fail, but we don't die."
Yeah,
Is that what it
survive.
was?
I think he said survive.
Right. We survive.
Yeah.
And I feel like them coming together, whatever that was. I'm not, again, with Mike, I don't know if it's love per se, but there's a connection there that's strong that builds a Nexus event on a planet that's already about to be destroyed. Like, which again, Mike said is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I don't understand what their connection is, because for it to be love, it's almost like loving yourself. So how does
You
How
look
does
at
that
yourself today? That's good.
Yeah. Have you looked at yourself? So that's kind of what it feels like. But I feel like just them being together is a threat as a whole. As I think as a Loki coming together, them being together is a problem. And then they get pulled. They get, I wouldn't say saved, quote unquote, but they get taken and put back in the TVA. I think what Mike said was great. I just don't know what their connection is yet, because it's not. It just feels weird if it's love. It almost feels like incest. That's why I was like, I don't know if it's like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not.
And just for anybody out there, I mean, incest is like, related. These are just I don't know. It's the same person. You love yourself, right? Nothing wrong with that. So okay, all right. So from that, then they're it's a scene of showing them both in the TVA, kind of get walked. They're all collared up. Mobius takes Loki to his little room. And puts him in a red door pops up, which is a little bit different, which ends up being the Sif time loop that we see. And I think this was the part that Loki just says something minor to him about the TVA's lying to you. I think that was the only thing he says at this point. And then he goes in there and is just constantly in that loop. I don't have much to add to this part. I don't know if either of you guys do before there's a whole bunch of stuff we're about to get into with some of this stuff, but is there anything at this point you guys want to add?
The only thing I will say is I believe that in Nordic storyline, there is a storyline where Loki cuts Sif's hair, and awesome. It causes, from what I remember, how the history of it works, that caused the dwarves to come, and it brought Thor's hammer. They came bearing gifts, and one of them was Thor's hammer. That's going way deep into it, but that's something that I briefly read. But I did like seeing her back in the loop. And it was just funny, him getting hit in the nuts over and over for a few times.
Yeah.
No, I agree with Mike. I love seeing Jamie Alexander back to Sif, because they never really closed the chapter on her. She kind of just disappeared, and that was it. And she didn't die in Ragnarok, so we never knew where she went. And I love her. She's great. And so to see her again was pretty cool. And then just the repetitive getting back in the face and then kicking the balls, and then it was great. Yeah, awesome, great scene.
So, all right, so we've got a couple of scenes that are jumping back and forth a little bit, but I'm going to go for the first one. Is Mobius is wanting to talk to C20, and he's talking about this with Ravana, but Ravana lets him know that she's dead now, and he seems very taken back. She's like, don't tell anybody, keep us between us. He's like, all right. But something definitely seems up with her. Something seems weird, something's off. Mobius goes back to talk to Loki, just to chat. Loki is then, they have a pretty long interaction together where Loki's coming up with this scheme. The whole idea was his, and this Sylvie person means nothing. And he's like, good, because she's dead. And he's like, wait, what? And he's like, wait, tell me if she's dead. And it was very passionate between them, what's going on. And Mobius was like, yeah, whatever, you're stupid. And he's getting ready to send him back into the time loop. But before Loki goes in, Loki tells Mobius that he's a variant. I think this was the part that happened. So look, I left a lot out just to keep it summed up, but there was a lot happening in this scene. So Eddie, what was your biggest takeaway, or what were some of the key points here? What are you seeing happening here?
For sure. Loki and Mobius have had a lot of intimate moments over the course of the series in the last 4 episodes. This is the one where I think Loki finally got to him a little bit. I should say a lot of it, actually. He expresses a caring feeling for Sylvie. That was his first and foremost thing when he sat down with Mobius, was where is she? Is she okay? Yeah. And he, after some back and forth with Mobius, he finally tells she's alive and she's well. And then he tries to explain to him you're here because of something that happened. You're not like your mind is somehow warped in a way where you don't know that you're not supposed to be here. Like you are from somewhere else. You're a variant. You were brought here by the TVA to work here as a drone, as a drone essentially. And there's a moment where Mobius is like he's actually listening. He's actually taking in what Loki's saying, and then he kind of goes back and settles back into his like, you're lying. I'm gonna throw you back in this time loop. What I found interesting was like. I feel like he believes it. He has
Mobius
to. Like there's no way. I'm sorry.
Mobius believes it.
Yes. Yeah. Mobius believes it. I know that. I know Loki does because I know Sylvie's. I know that Sylvie told the truth to Loki for sure. But there's a moment where he believes it, and you see it with him. You see it with B-15 because when she got touched earlier at Roxcar by Sylvie. She gets up from her moment and she's like, she has this weird experience, and she's even talking to Mobius about the whole thing. I think maybe like a little bit after this. So they're both on the same page, and they're starting to slowly unravel what's happening in the TVA and like, is what they're saying true? Like I want to know, and they go to find out more. Both of them do. We won't jump into that yet, but we'll get there. But with Mobius and Loki, yeah, I mean the scene was really good in terms of just getting him to see a different side of what he's thought was real for who knows how long.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
There was one part right when they kind of start having a conversation where Loki is kind of opening up, showing that he wants to make sure Sylvie's okay, where Mobius goes, Loki's playing checkers, Mobius playing chess. Like he knows that he has to like go through kind of like this back and forth to actually get where Loki can't just straight up like say what's going on. Like there was one point where he had to like make up that he was the one like with the plan and he was the leader, and there's still like this narcissistic aspect about him where he can't just be like, I don't know what's going on, but there's like, even if Sylvie is leading, like he can't just, there's still just that part of him.
Yeah.
But Mobius knows almost how to push his buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with Eddie where I think it was right when, because Mobius has said he knows when Loki is lying and when he's not. And when Loki looked at him and goes, "You're a variant," and he was like very staunch on it. Like you could tell, like that's when like something clicked for Mobius to where. Like he even like kind of cut like the almost like the conversation short. He's like, all right, well I got to do this paperwork because I think in his he was kind of hamster wheeling like I need to talk to like Renslayer and I need to see what's going on. But obviously he's not gonna like show his cards and act like he's like, all right, let's like figure it out. He's Mobius was super smart how he kind of, when we talk about the next few things, how he played it, but you could tell there was that one part where he was like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Thor?
So, there's definitely something going on with this. I like your guys' point about, Mobius knowing when Loki's going to lie and that there was kind of a take back there. And that does seem to send him on his little mission that we're going to get into a little bit here, because there's something going on with B-15 too at this time, right? And as this is all happening, you're seeing her just kind of have these weird faces, these weird interactions. She just seems like genuinely like confused about what's up. And she eventually goes to see Sylvie and basically brings her to Roxcart and says, "What the hell did you do to me? What did you show me? What is this?" And basically Sylvie tells her, "You're all variants," and touches her head and gives her some sort of scene that you can tell B-15's kind of like, all right, so you see, for me, for the stuff you guys were talking about, this next scene or this next section, it's, you can see the things unraveling on some portion at the TVA. I don't know if it's right, wrong, and something is clearly happening here, obviously to move the story forward, but also because, it's, stuff's wrong. Something's not right. So Sylvie is looking at the moment like she might be the protagonist, of the show, which is kind of, I know it's supposed to be Loki, but I might be her. And Loki's just kind of there for the ride, and he's just the main character we know. So, like I mentioned, they brought B-15 to Roxcart. Is there anything you guys want to add about the Rock Cart scene with B-15 before I go on to the Mobius and Ravana's office?
I loved it. Sylvie explains to her, she's like, I don't make new memories. I use what's there in order to be able to in order to be able to enchant you. And she's like, and she pretty much reconstructs what her memories are and puts into her world. But those are B-15's memories. And she explains to her, like, I can only use what's there. So when she shows her life before the TVA, that was like passionate. I mean, she's crying in the rain. As you can see the tears coming down her face, and then she just says, she's like, I looked happy. And you're like, yeah. And but first of all, when she goes in the room, first of all, she gets access to get to Sylvie, and because she's apparently one of those high-ranking Minute people, it's 2021 people. Anyway, she goes in, with the notion to prune her, and then she turns it off, opens up the thing, and then brings her Rock's card. And Sylvie's kind of like confused by it, but then when she explains everything, it all makes sense. But yeah, I just thought it was really touching seeing how she explains to her, like, I didn't do this to you. They did. I'm just trying to help out. I'm trying to pull you out of what they've buried you so deep into. But yeah. Mike.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that I also noticed about that scene that, again, it was very, emotional, moving, like very cool. Like whatever the memory she was bringing to her, you could tell B-15 was like I think she said, she's like, I look happy. And the other thing I will say that, like, there's a moment where I think I agree with what you're saying, where I think Sylvie is like maybe the good Loki, where she's showing her the memory, she's like touching her, and like you can see she can see the memory as well, and you can see her like face kind of like react like this is like a very nice memory. Like you could see like it affected her too, like because Sylvie's been kind of like very prudent, but like there was a moment where like she got kind of like she like did like a face like, yeah, I know,
right,
which I thought was like, again, all these things are happening and going on, but it was a very cool moment for sure.
Yeah. So, and shortly after this, that's when Mobius goes into Ravana's office, it's talking to her, shooting the breeze, basically steals her temp pad, because you can obviously, he, like we said, something's up. He sees the truth on the video about, where they were recording what was her name, C20, what she was saying. And so it's like, okay, all right. And then so he then goes to get Loki and brings him out. It has one of my favorite scenes of the show with him in particular, just the acting really, is, because she asked him earlier in the episode, she asked, where would you want to be? He's like, I don't know, here, this is my place, whatever, And he says, I'd like to be where I was actually originally from, maybe even ride a jet ski. And zap. And I was just like, what? Like, what? Are you serious right now? So, okay, so for that whole, like, clearly Ravana's coming out to be the bad person here. I don't know what's going on. I need what's up? What are you guys thinking here?
So I'll start. I want to start back where Mobius real quick is in the office. Mm-hmm. They're having like their celebratory whiskey that, I think it was a couple episodes ago, they teased that it's kind of like their tradition. I think there was some whiskey drink rings on the table, that sort of thing, putting the the trophy, if you will, of Sylvie in her office. And it was kind of one of those things where Mobius, you could tell, was like trying to get stuff out of Renslayer, because he would be like, oh, I'm glad this is over. I think they were closing the case. She was signing paperwork. He was signing paperwork too. And then every once in a while, be like, why don't you let me talk to C20?
Yeah.
Or why don't you he kept like prying a little bit. And you could tell that, Renslayer kept trying to just like either divert the subject or be like, get over it. It's no big deal. Like, what's the matter with you? And that's when she actually asks him, where in time would you want to go? And Mobius, being I think, he was very much, in line with the TVA. He was like, I'd want to be no other place but here. And it was kind of, and then he was able to, like I said, sneak the temp pad. But I thought that one scene was kind of it was important because it was really Mobius's final like light switch of something's not right. Okay.
Right. That whole scene, he's playing coy as hell. Like I've never seen someone try and play off like being drunk or just being happy about something, because the scene starts, they're signing papers, and they sign with the same pen they used that high school like pen from, what was it, that Franklin Jefferson?
Yeah, FDR. I think it's FDR.
FDR, yeah, FDR. And so he signs the paperwork, and then she says something about it finally being over. He says amen, you know, like just to kind of go along with the process. And then, like Mike said, he starts to kind of, you know, pry a little bit, like why can't, you know, why are these things? Why all this? Yada, yada, yada. And he started to ask questions because obviously he believes what Loki said when he was talking to him in the interrogation room. So to bring it to Renslayer, and for her to actively avoid it, like to just dodge the question and just keep pushing him back, like, nah, it's not, you know, it's part of the process, yada, yada. Why are you so curious, yada, yada. And you know he's gonna do something drastic. You just don't know what it is yet. So when he's like, yeah, you know, what are you gonna do with the, you know, with that one? You know, we're gonna put that. And so when she goes to do it, he swaps out the 10 pads. I was like, how fast before they notice that they're dead, before she notices it's not hers? And how would you know? Like, is it obviously like a different 10 pad? Is like a login different? I'm curious how you separate your, like how 10 pads are different from each other. I guess there's more on her or whatever. And so he gets it, swaps out, and then he goes, I'm gonna head out. After one drink, Mobius, I had two. Like, and then he plays like he's drunk, and you're like, you're not. Like, come on, man. Like, you know better. Like, he's trying to get out of there. So like, and I feel like she kind of knows a little bit, like, right? Because even I think like the last shot is her watching him leave, and she has that face of like, I think you just played me. And he goes back, and then he goes to the library and watches back the interview with C20, and Renslayer pops into the frame, and then you know that obviously she's the baddie. Which I feel like we do from the jump, because in every show we've watched so far in this series, there's always one person where you're like, this person right here, I hope that they die, because I just don't like that. I don't like their whole presence in the show. It's just terrible. And so we find out C20, or that she took away C20. But the moment when she asks Mobius, like, yeah, like, where could, like, if you could go anywhere in the timeline, where would you go? Like, I don't know. And but we know, because there's magazines of jet skis all over your desk. We know where you want to go. And even Loki brings it up. And then so when he goes back to get Loki, and bring him out of the time loop with Sif, and he's talking about, you know, maybe you're a good guy, and then he goes, you know, he says something to him along those lines of like, maybe you're not as bad as you think, or something like that. And Loki kind of smiles because he knows that. You can be even good.
Right, you can be good even if you want. I don't know if anyone's told you that.
Yeah.
Right. That was good. That was a great line. I feel like every series that we've watched so far has had one line where we're like, that was money. Like, way to earn your freaking, like oh
that's
my God.
That's on a meme on Instagram for sure.
Yeah, dude. Like, way to get your Emmy. Like, great. And so pulls him out of there, and they meet Ravonna, and you know what's gonna happen. Like, you know something's gonna happen. But then he talks about he answers her question honestly this time and says like, maybe, you know, somewhere with a jet ski. And it was an emotional, like, I legit was like, was that like we're gonna see something like soft here? And then he gets pruned, and you're like, ah! And Loki has to watch it. I mean, like, Ravonna looks away, but I feel like she was okay with it. Weirdly, I mean, she was totally fine with like pruning what seemed to be her best agent. Seriously. And so that was kind of wild. And then they get taken.
But I will say, when they do take him out, she has that moment of like
a little bit of regret.
Yeah, she had like a
right.
I can't believe I had to do that. Like, like there was that tiny moment for sure.
Yeah. Just a sliver in there.
No, you're good. And then, it's all good.
And then we're in the elevator with Loki, Sylvie, and Renslayer.
Yeah, right. And so that's the next spot here, is that they're going to the timekeepers in the elevator, like Eddie said. And Sylvie says, you know, what was the nexus of it? Why did you take me as a kid? And again, we already know this at this point, is Ravonna's bad. And she just has this kind of like arrogant, sinister smile and just says, I don't remember. You know, and it was just kind of like, oh man, yo, that's cold. So like, you are so like this person you've been chasing for years and years and years, messing up. You just don't remember why you brought them and why they, you know, like what was the reason behind it? Like, get out of here. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, I'm interested to see if we ever do. I think it's going to be about who she is like who Sylvie is as a person. I forget, one of you guys I think mentioned this before, that maybe it's not necessarily a Nexus event, but whoever's ultimately behind everything that's happening here knows that some interaction with Sylvie with somebody else, and it might be Loki, causes some problem for this person somewhere, somehow. And so they need to get her. And, you know, obviously a lot of fingers point to Kang. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. He's the master of time. Whatever. I don't know. So, you know, we get to see the timekeeper shortly here, but on the elevator ride, I mean, it's a small scene, but it was, I thought, a pretty powerful scene. You know, as Loki, I guess, talk to me about that scene, and then as Loki and Sylvie are only talking smack to the timekeepers, and, you know, they got their collars on and getting zipped back. So, like, in that segment, what are you guys seeing?
So I do, when they're going up the, one thing I don't know why this matters, but Renslayer was like, I'll take it from here, and left the security guards. And then I wasn't expecting to see other security guards up there. You would think like she'd want them like alone. It was just, again, I don't know. You know, it was just one of those things like, why couldn't they go up? You know, unless the security guards that are in there, I don't know.
Different tiers of security or something.
They are different tiers, but it was like a very, like you thought she was doing that so she could like not have anyone see what she's about to do, or like, then there was people in there. B-15 comes, saves the day. She got knocked out fairly quickly, which, you know, she seemed like a badass very much at first, but yeah, she was out of the fight right away. The one thing I will say, when she unlocked it, that I found interesting, and maybe I'm overthinking it, but Renslayer tells security, protect the timekeepers, but then she jumps behind security. And it was one of those things, you know how, again, and we're going to get to kind of almost the point here, but I've said there's someone, I'll call it Wizard of Oz. But, you know, in movies, when they're like, protect the king, and it's like kind of like the king, like, or whatever, protect whoever, but they're the one that needs protecting. That's the vibe I got from it. Like, she was literally like, protect the Time Slayers, but I'm backing the which you would think she would want. She wants to kill these people, obviously, so you would think there would be like more, like she would join the fight too. But it was very interesting how she did it, because she was very much like, protect the timekeepers, and then kind of like looked at them, and like, that's the only like really in that fight that I was like, that was an interesting move on that part. And we can talk about what happens after the fact, which now, you know, give some answers, but Or Eddie, what about you?
Sure. I will say one thing I noticed in the timekeepers, like their elevator. I love how the symbols on the wall are like the infinity symbol, but like squared out. I don't even know, because like what's their phrase for all time, always? So it makes sense that like
yeah, for all time, for always, all time.
Right. It's it's all good. It's just funny that like the symbols on the wall are like the infinity symbol, which means kind of like always, for all time. And then like if you flip it the other way, it's almost like it's a sand, like the sand
hourglass.
of time. Hourglass. Yeah. That looks great. So I thought that was a cool touch to like the timekeeper's elevator.
Interesting.
During the elevator, and I'm sorry.
I just think it's interesting. That's good. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So they're in the elevator, and Sylvie asks, you know, like, why'd you pull me? I don't remember. Like, that's the most smug crap I've ever seen in my life. Like, you know, or you don't know. Maybe you're just playing coy. Like, I mean, again,
no, her face for sure was like, I know exactly. Like, she has an emotional attachment to Sylvie.
Right.
For sure.
And so is it because of what she is it because of two reasons? One, why she pulled her from Asgard, or because she was the one that got away? Is that like what is it both of them, or just the one?
Right.
It's a fair question. Yes. I don't, you know, it's a great question.
Because it's odd that like that was the one variant that you let escape for several years, like several, and then you get promoted to judge off of that. Like, that mistake I feel like would be a blemish on what is probably a excellent report card. I feel like all those A's and one F, that was the one you gotta get away. I feel like that's unique to me. So then, they get in the room with the timekeepers, and again, like Mike said, it's weird that I'll take them on himself, and there's 2 security guards up there, and you're like, do they know? Are they involved in? Are there tears? Is it like all those? And so they get up there, and they're talking to the timekeepers, which they just they look so what's the word I'm thinking?
Ridiculous.
Yeah, like that's a good way to put it.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Jar Jar Binks in the Star Wars movies.
Okay, bet. All right.
Like that CGI.
Mhm.
Like I feel like they've had like aliens look like way more. Again, maybe it's money and whatever.
Right.
It was very much like there was one trying to talk to them, and it very much got like a cheesy, like cartoonish vibe. I was like,
it did.
What the heck is going on?
Yeah.
It's funny. I want to jump in for 1 second there because the one thing that I actually thought of, I don't know if you guys have ever, and I forget the name of it at the moment, but have you ever been to like Disneyland or Disney World where they've got those robotic bears in the Western Station? Like when I saw that scene, that's what I was like, something seems off with how they're moving. And just like, anyway, we learn more about that in a second. So anyway, go ahead, Eddie.
Right, for sure. No, so they're in there and they're talking to the timekeepers, yada yada yada, and then they're going to make moves towards them, and Renslayer's trying to hold him back, but then she realizes that her little button isn't working. Then you see B-15 kind of pop in, and I know Mike that you mentioned that she seems like she got knocked out relatively quickly, but if you go back like 2 episodes when she was kind of fighting with Loki in the room, he had her on that time loop multiple times.
Oh
as well.
yeah.
So I feel like she has her moments where she's kind of like caught off guard by Loki, as her whatever.
Right.
But yeah, she does get taken out rather quickly for being like for someone who seems like just a badass, like just a unit of a person.
Right.
And so and then they have a little fight, which it was weird that Renslayer kind of was like, protect the timekeepers, and then just like faded into the abyss. Like, where are you going, bud? Like, isn't that your job? Like,
yeah, she literally was just watching. That's all.
Yeah, dude. Well, but I will say though, her character does seem like she's one of those that will like, she on the outside it's all business, but when it comes to like the fight, I think having not been a soldier for so long, she'll wait in the back, and when someone seems vulnerable, she'll attack, which is what she did later. So I think that's probably why I think that's probably her mindset as far as like attacking goes on anybody. So then the Loki and Sylvie take out the timekeeper, the Minutemen, and then they have a moment with the timekeepers, and I'll let Thor lead us in for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you guys covered B-15 coming in, giving Sylvie the sword, the fight, unlocking the timekeeper. Sylvie basically, once they win, takes her sword, throws it at the timekeeper's head, and it comes rolling off. They pick it up, and it's just a bunch of wires. It's like, okay, so like
Wizard of Oz, baby.
Yep,
Wizard of Oz.
for sure.
I don't know what person said that last week, but
that was you, bud.
That person is real smart.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate
smart,
you
Cookie.
remembering I said that. Thank you. No, just kidding.
Pretty fart smeller guy.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of like, all right, and like Mike said that, I mean, that was, he predicted last week. I'm not, super, like he was like, all right, is it though? Is it? And it was. I mean, and we've hit on it. I don't know what more to say about it. I mean, there's clearly like, I wondered if the timekeepers were going to be real or not. I wondered if there'd be more behind it. I don't know. I mean, and then obviously we'll get into what Loki and Sylvie do next, and what happens with it. But what was you guys? I mean, were you guys happy to see this? Were you confused AF to see it, or are you just kind of like, yep, I knew it?
I'm gonna let Mike lead because he had the theory last week.
I mean, there are points where I watch things and I have theories, and it's nice to be right sometimes.
Big flex, Mike.
It's nice to be right. Like when it was a robot, I was like, I knew it. It felt good. It felt good. And it also, like, I mean, obviously, like, when we talk about all this stuff, we talk about, all these shows having crazy theories, but we, like, our theories are basically like trying to like figure out direction. And the way they've done this series so far, the fact that like Mobius had never seen the timekeepers, like there was also one part where Renslayer was like, timekeepers want you to be there for the pruning. Like he's never even met them before. Like all of a sudden, like there's just, they were so far and away for being the rulers of infinite time that they seem fake. So again, we have theories like whether it's Kang, which I think it is, but we'll cross that bridge. But yeah, I felt good being right about that part. I don't feel right. I'm not right a lot, but that one felt good.
Yeah.
I have a theory.
Go. What's
Sorry.
that?
I have a theory. Okay, so we found out the timekeepers are androids, right? They're just machines, wires, whatever. And it was cool how the other two just kind of died after the one. So like they laugh a little bit and then they just fade down.
Yeah.
It was like a puppet. It was like when you like.
It's like those bears at Disneyland.
Like band. The band at Chuck E. Cheese when they just go,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then they just die.
Exactly.
That was it.
Yep.
So, theory that I have, because we haven't seen her or heard from her in a while, Ms. Minutes.
Yeah, something's up.
Listen, I mentioned, I think before in episode 1 or 2 about, remember the movie I, Robot with Will Smith? How we thought that the killer was the robot, but really it was the AI that controls the whole tower. Now, Miss Minutes, we haven't seen her for a second, and since everybody in the TVA seems to be a variant, what if Miss Minutes is a variant in case it's like a cartoon, like an animation, and she created the whole idea of the timekeepers and all of the jazz? Because obviously there's someone pulling the strings for the timekeepers, like someone knows more. It could be Kang, very well could be. But so far, there's been no discussion about it. Jonathan Majors, who's playing Kang in Quantumania, hasn't mentioned anything about being on set. Then again, he may be playing coy. But then again, I feel like every time an actor says, "Oh yeah," they end up somewhere, and we're like, we should have guessed. But yeah, I mean, it could be Miss Minutes pulling the strings. That's one theory because we haven't heard from her in a minute. And plus, Tara Strong is a great voice actor. For her to not be in this show more than she is, I feel like that's doing her a disservice. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways, because in the comics, the timekeepers, like they're beings, they're like they're actual things, and for them now, it's almost like they're puppets. There is a character in the comics named, was it He Who Remains? I think that's what it is. It's like this old dude. I mean, like my man looks like he's well past death. I think he created
them in the comics, right?
Right. Yeah. He looks like he's forever years old, and so that might be an option, but I don't think they'll dive into that. But yeah, my theory is that it might be Ms. Minutes because it just feels right. It just feels right.
It's interesting.
But yeah, so then what happens here? Oh no, did we get to the part where?
I'll leave. So basically, right after that, Loki's talking to Sylvie. I mentioned this, and they're trying to figure out what's next. And it seemed like he was about to profess some sort of love or connection to her, whatever it might have been, and just starts disappearing Vision style from WandaVision, where it's just it just starts disappearing. And Ravana's behind him, and she pruned him. And I got audible at this point. I was like, what? No, like, what are you, what? Like, okay, and then Sylvie and Ravana fight. Sylvie basically whips her butt, and then, was getting ready to prune her, and Ravana says, do it. And I'm kind of like, all right, that's odd. Like, what is seriously going on here? But, I mean, at that moment, I was legit like, I don't understand this. How can he not be in the show? Like, anyway, all right, I'll leave it there. It's still like, even saying that makes me feel the feelings I had when it happened, because I was like straight taken back, where I was just like, this is not real. Like, no, like, what is going on here?
When he got pruned, Mike, want to take it?
Oh, go ahead.
When he got pruned, I love how it started in the heart, because it was a very intimate moment, and then the pruning started from like the back, but it started coming through the front through his heart, and then he got like Thor said, it was similar to how Vision went away. It was like his whole body, then his face was the last thing that Sylvie saw. And then Renslayer's behind him with just like the meanest like mug, just got him. Like, you're like, oh wow. And again, I agree with Thor. I was like, what? But then I was also like, well, where's he gonna go though? Because there's still 2 episodes left. So like, obviously there was intrigue there. Yeah, and then they fight, and I mean, obviously Sylvie whoops Renslayer's butt, because Renslayer's been on a desk for who knows how long. I feel like her skills are probably a little bit, rusty. Yeah. And how she was so quickly to be okay to be pruned, I was like, it's interesting. But she's not gonna do that because she wants answers, obviously, and she says that. So we knew that wasn't gonna happen. But I am curious now for this week on Wednesday what we're gonna find out, because I feel like we might know why she took Sylvie in the first place. But yeah, Mike, I'll let you take over.
That one part, it was interesting, because Sylvie, when they basically find out that the timekeepers are puppets, her mindset is like everything she's basically grown up to try to do is now like it's a blank slate. At the same time, Loki's like, hey, I gotta like Loki's mind is like completely different from hers. Hers is like my, everything I've strived for my entire life is now pointless. Loki's like trying to say something important, and you can tell as soon as the heart. I knew when they do those shots like that, I knew something was gonna happen. Like
right.
It was one of those things. It's like it's not wide viewed. It's
very tight.
Very close, and they made it like a adamant point for like Sylvie to be like looking up at Loki, like not like it was just a wide set, but it was as soon as it happened, it was like I was like, oh come on, come on. Obviously, like Eddie said, there's 2 episodes left, so I don't think Loki's dead, and Loki said it earlier, Loki's don't die, so. I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. What about you, Thor?
Yeah, so, I mean, I mentioned the passion I had in the scene, and I didn't think about it immediately that there was 2 episodes left, like the way you guys did. It was more of, there's 2 episodes left still, like, Sylvie's going to be the person then? Like, what the heck?
Right.
That's the way I kind of thought about it. But luckily, we have credits.
Like they were passing the torch.
Yeah, I didn't know. You know what I mean? And I was kind of like, this is weird. And we have the credits in our post-credit scene, and we see Loki, and it's like, okay, so he's here. Something's happening, and it's basically an apocalyptic New York. A bunch of damage everywhere. You see Avengers Tower. Like, it's almost. I mean, one of the things that I think I read was like, is this what happened if Loki would have won in that when he tried to take over New York in the Avengers? I don't know about that, but whatever. And then you see 4 Lokis. You see Boastful Loki, which was the one with the hammer. You see Kid Loki, which is obvious. You see Croca Loki. And then I'll call it like OG Loki, the older, I forget the actor's name.
The original from the comics.
Yeah.
Like, his costume was straight out of the comics. I don't know
Classic
what you call
Loki.
him, but
yeah, like a classic Loki. So it's kind of like, and he's like, am I dead? And they say, no, but if you don't want to be, you need to come with us right away. And it was like, okay. And that's where we're left. And I'm like, so I'm now, and I want to hear what you guys have to think about this, but I'm at the point where I'm like, all right, I mean, with these shows, we've seen the formula a little bit. Like, they don't really get to anything like major until that last episode. So we've got an episode next week that I think is going to be sort of set up episode. Not a bad one, but it's going to start like he's going to be there. It's going to be explaining what's happening a little bit. We're going to find out maybe what's really going on. And it's going to set up into episode 6 where it's like, this is the conflict, and we're going to see the conflict in episode 6. But I am like, I almost feel like I hated it. Like I used to watch Lost and I got pissed about how that show Lost ended. Because I had so many questions, and
worst ending. It's one of the worst endings of any show ever made.
Absolutely right. Dexter. The last season when they added people, I'm like, what is this? You haven't even answered a million of your questions. Anyway, but I'm like, okay, who made the timekeepers? Like, what's Ravana's deal? Like, what's the deal with the variants? What's the deal with Miss Minutes? What's the deal with Mobius? What's the deal with everybody there? Where are they at? Is it the quantum realm? How are they manipulating time? Like, what do they do when they prune these events? Like, all of these different things. I'm like, if you give me a filler episode, not a filler episode, but like a build-up episode in 5. And you got the conflict in 6. I'm like, how are you going to tell me the answers to all this? I don't know how you're going to do it. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I want to hear what you guys are thinking and where you're at.
I'll start real quick.
Please.
When they pan the camera and you see all the different Lokis. One, I think the Croc Loki, I think that's a pet. I think that's going to be a pet. I don't think that's an actual going to be an iteration of Loki. It is.
Right.
Whatever.
They're just ridiculous. It's hilarious. But I like seeing. Again, I think we had talked separately. Richard Grant, who was in the classic Loki. I thought he was actually going to be Kang. But because I thought way he kind of looks like the form they gave in the Timekeepers. He looked like one of them. But you see the apocalyptic New York. My whole thing is he got pruned and he's call it alive. Does that mean everyone who gets pruned is in this world? Like they like
in a world.
Like whoever's timekeeper, whoever's running the show, like completely like disintegrate someone's existence, because I think that would mess up the timeline. So maybe they're in like this weird prison world of an apocalyptic like subset of a timeline.
Yeah.
Eddie, I think or Thor, did you say this? Where it was perhaps Loki like won the Battle of New York. Was that what you said?
Yeah.
I actually like that. Possibly. Loki's alive, and keeps everything alive. But a lot more questions. There's still so many more questions.
Yeah.
So,
Like Sylvie said, like to Raven, she's like, you're gonna tell me everything. Like,
right.
I need to know everything. Please tell us everything. And it's gonna be interesting. I don't know where Loki is. I guess I'm happy he's alive. I hope Mobius is there with him.
Yeah, me too.
I hope Mobius is there with him. That's all I gotta say.
So what about you, Eddie?
Okay. All right. So a couple things, just like little points. When he wakes up, he says, "This is hell," and he says HEL if you're watching it with like subtitles. And hell is the Norse mythology, not the Christianity of HELL. So there's a difference there, which I thought was pretty cool. And then the music in the background was very reminiscent of like at the end of Avengers when the Avengers pulls the bow back. Right, that music there was very similar to that, and even just the shot was almost like it was like identical, just the way they were standing over him and all that stuff. And so you see the boastful Loki, his black dude. I don't know his name. I think I've seen him before in movies though. But I love how he's holding like a makeshift like Mjolnir, made out of what looks like to be like like a tire iron and or a truck piston and like I guess it was like a railroad like I don't know what it was. Yeah. And you see classic Loki, which is Richard E. Grant, which is great because we were promised James Spader in the credits of WandaVision. I never saw him, so I'm happy we're seeing Richard Grant now. It's just lit. It's fantastic, and he has the line in the scene, which is great. And then you see the kid Loki, and then the Gator with the crown, which I thought was kind of interesting. And so so Thor, you mentioned the Avengers Tower in the background.
Yeah.
Dope, because I don't think it's 2012, because in 2012 they didn't have the Quinjet access on the tower yet. That was after like Age of Ultron. So I feel like this might take place somewhere at like during like maybe like Infinity War Endgame, some kind of realm in that area when everything has been destroyed. Maybe like Thanos won and that was it. Like no one tried again. That was just done. Which would be an interesting world. But I think I was curious when people get pruned where they go. And where they go, what seems like a purgatory, and I'm assuming it's a purgatory meant for your variants only, not like everybody's in one space. Maybe that's my theory, because then we see, I know like in the featurette, I'm not sure if we can talk about this or not, but like spoiler alert, we see Mobius in a truck like driving across like what looks to be like what should be the desert, because there's a sphinx off in the background, but he's in grass, so I'm not sure if that's like a thing. So I'm not sure if where they are is like their own specific prune place or just some overall purgatory. But that was dope. And so many questions.
Well, I mean, I think I don't think it's like a Loki prune area and a Mobius pruned area, because at some point, and I believe it might be in this area, we've seen in trailers, unless it's just a fake trailer, which we know Marvel does, the scene where Loki looks to be in the suit and he's got this mob around him and it's like they're all with him and then they're against him. And we haven't seen that scene yet. So I think that scene is in that area, which would tell me it's not a Loki pruned area. It's a everyone pruned area or whatever. But that would also mean that there could be, well, I guess we already know there's 5 Lokis or 4 Lokis. So
several.
Yeah.
They mentioned them in episode 2 when they were going through all the different Lokis that were in like the little pad of people. Well, like a Hulk kind of Loki. That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
No, I thought, but I mean, overall, the episode was fantastic. But it leaves with so many questions. A lot of questions.
Yeah. Mike, you got anything more to add there?
No, I mean, it's obviously whenever there's a mid-credit scene, it's a cool way. Like, you just get excited. I mean, we sit, I can't fast forward on my thing, so I have to like wait it out. And I think every episode, I just think there's going to be a mid-credit scene, and when there is, it's worth it. So, like I said, glad Loki's not dead. Interesting where this world is, whether it is like a purgatory or an open world prison hoping for the actual real timeline that, and everything is just like an abyss, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows? But there's, like I said, a lot of questions. By the way, speaking of things that were mentioned, when Renslayer was talking to Mobius very earlier, they were talking about how they've caught Kree.
Right.
Titans. I can't believe we didn't mention
Titans,
this.
vampires.
Vampires.
Which is a reference to Blade. That's opening up Blade right there. That, like,
I thought
even
it
the
was a
smallest
reference
thing.
to Hellcow. How dare you?
Or Morbius.
Yeah.
I mean, but all
It opens
three,
up the
but,
whole
like,
world. It opens up
yeah,
all of that. Yeah.
Like, I was just waiting for them to say mutants, and then I was just gonna like pee my pants.
Yeah.
Like change your pants.
But yeah, I just can't wait for this week's episode, because hopefully, I mean, we're almost at the end. Kind of like with all these shows, they have to like wrap it up. Like they have to. Everything has to be like either put in a bow. Obviously, we talked about how we think this is tied to basically, you know, it seems because all of these next movies that are down the pipeline have the multiverse aspect.
Yep.
This is going to be a huge aspect of, I think, how this show ends.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the 3 movies coming up, the main ones, have to do with the multiverse. Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Ant-Man all have to do with the multiverse.
Mhm.
So whether that's like their next phase, and that'll be kind of interesting to see, but I need to know everything. So.
Yeah. I know. I mean, luckily, but I mean, we're shooting this, you know, late this week because we were all pretty busy and had a bunch of stuff going on. You know, 4th of July.
Holiday.
Yeah, I was like, you know, happy 4th of July for all you Americans out there. So yeah, you know, I'm looking forward. Luckily, we don't have too long to wait after shooting this. We'll see kind of how it shakes out, but I'm stoked. So yeah, appreciate everybody kind of stopping by to check this out. You know, we'll always keep sharing our thoughts on these shows. I mentioned at the beginning that, you know, we're getting towards that 10,000 subscriber mark. If you want to go ahead and subscribe and do a giveaway, just comment below to get enrolled in that. Hammer down that like button, click the notification bell. I already mentioned the subscription. And until next time, hope you have a wonderful day. See ya.